The New Mexico sun blazed overhead like a merciless eye, casting long shadows across Marcus Whitehorse's cattle ranch. The 48-year-old rancher guided his weathered pickup truck along the dusty dirt road that marked the eastern boundary of his property, windows down to catch whatever breeze might offer relief from the oppressive July heat. Marcus had been working this land for nearly 3 decades, ever since his father Benjamin passed away and left him the sprawling 8,000-acre ranch. Despite his surname, Marcus wasn't Native American. His great-grandfather had earned the name after trading horses with the Apache tribes in the 1800s. Now, in 2019, Marcus felt like a ghost, haunting his own property, going through the motions, without any real purpose. The loneliness had become a constant companion, especially after his wife Alina left him 2 years ago. She couldn't handle his descent into depression following the tragic loss of their teenage son Michael in a motorcycle accident. The divorce papers sat in his kitchen drawer, yellowed with age and neglect, a testament to how completely his life had fallen apart. As he drove past the ancient cottonwood trees that marked the border between his ranch and the Mescalero Apache reservation, something caught his eye. A small figure was huddled against the massive trunk of the largest tree, barely visible in the dappled shade. It was a young girl, perhaps 13 or 14 years old, with long black hair that hung like a dark curtain around her face. She was wearing a faded purple tank top and torn jeans, her small frame shaking with intense emotional distress. But what made Marcus's blood run cold was what she was doing to herself. She was biting her own arm with such violence that he could see blood staining her sleeve. Marcus immediately pulled over and killed the engine, his hands trembling as he opened the truck door. The girl looked up at the sound, her dark eyes wild with pain and terror. She was clearly Apache, with the distinctive features of her people-high cheekbones, olive-toned skin, and those deep, expressive eyes that now held so much anguish. "Hey, there," Marcus called out softly, approaching slowly with his hands visible. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Marcus. What's your name?" The girl scrambled backward against the tree trunk, her breathing rapid and shallow. "Stay away from me," she cried, her voice raw from crying. "I'm dangerous. I hurt people. I can't stop hurting myself." Marcus's heart clenched with recognition. He had felt that same desperate self-loathing after Michael's death, that overwhelming sense that he was fundamentally broken and dangerous to everyone around him. Without thinking, he slowly lowered himself to the ground, about 15 feet away, sitting cross-legged in the dust. "I'm not going anywhere," he said quietly. "And I'm not going to try to make you do anything, but I'd like to know your name, if you're willing to tell me." The girl studied his face for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether he was a threat. Finally, she whispered, "Lucia. My name is Lucia Begay." "That's a beautiful name," Marcus said honestly. "Lucia, I can see that you're in a lot of pain right now. Can you tell me what's hurting you so much?" Lucia's face crumpled, and she bit down on her arm again, harder this time. Marcus could see fresh blood seeping through her sleeve, and every instinct in his body screamed at him to rush forward and stop her. But he forced himself to remain still. "I killed them," Lucia sobbed, the words barely audible. "My parents are dead because of me. I should have died with them. I should have been in that car." Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. The raw pain in her voice was so familiar, so achingly reminiscent of his own darkest moments. "Lucia," he said, gently, "can you tell me what happened to your parents?" "Car accident," she whispered, then bit her arm again. 3 months ago, they were coming back from Albuquerque after visiting my aunt. I was supposed to go with them, but I had a fight with my mom about something stupid. I stayed home with my grandmother instead." The pieces began to fall into place. For Marcus, survivor's guilt, he knew it intimately. That corrosive feeling that you should have been able to prevent the tragedy, that you should have been the one to die instead. "Lucia, look at me," Marcus said, his voice firm but gentle. "You did not kill your parents. Whatever happened, it was not your fault." "Yes, it was," she screamed, her voice echoing across the desert. "If I had gone with them, we would have left. At a different time. Maybe we would have taken a different route. They would still be alive." Marcus slowly stood up and took a step closer. "Or maybe you would have died too, and then your grandmother would have lost everyone she loves in one night. Did you ever think of that?" Lucia looked up at him with surprise, as if this possibility had never occurred to her. In that moment of distraction, Marcus took another step forward. "I lost my son 2 years ago," he said quietly. "Motorcycle accident. He was 17 years old, and I spent months thinking about all the things I could have done differently. The what-ifs nearly drove me insane." Lucia's eyes widened, and for the first time, she seemed to really see him. You lost your son. I did, and I know exactly how you feel right now. That crushing weight of guilt, that feeling like you're carrying something so heavy it might kill you. Marcus rolled up his sleeves, revealing faded scars on his forearms. I used to cut myself. Different method than yours, but same reason. I thought I deserved the pain. Lucia stared at his scars, then looked down at her own injured arm. How? How did you stop? Very slowly, Marcus admitted, and with a lot of help. But first, I had to accept that my son wouldn't want me to suffer. Like that. He loved me too much to want me to hurt myself. They stood there in silence for several minutes, the desert wind whispering through the cottonwood leaves above them. Finally, Lucia spoke again. I miss them so much it feels like I'm dying, she whispered. I know, Marcus said, taking another step closer. But Lucia, hurting yourself won't bring them back. And I guarantee you that your parents would be heartbroken if they knew you were doing this to yourself. Lucia looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to stop. When the feelings get too big, when I can't breathe, biting myself is the only thing that makes it stop. Marcus was close enough now that he could see the depth of her pain etched in every line of her young face. Can I show you something else that might help? Something that won't hurt you? Lucia nodded hesitantly, and Marcus slowly reached out his hand. May I? She looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment, then slowly placed her injured arm in his palm. Marcus could feel her trembling, could see the fresh bite marks through her torn sleeve. This is called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, Marcus said softly. When you feel that overwhelming urge to hurt yourself, you try to name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. They practiced the technique together, with Lucia naming the things she could observe around them. Marcus was amazed by how quickly she picked it up, and how her breathing began to slow and deepen as she focused on the exercise. That's really good, Marcus said encouragingly. You're a natural at this. For the first time since he'd found her, Lucia smiled, just a small, tentative expression, but it transformed her entire face. My grandmother always says, I'm good at noticing things. She says it's because I have an artist's eye. You're an artist? Marcus asked, genuinely interested. Lucia nodded, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. I like to draw. Mostly landscapes and animals. My parents always said I was really talented. Marcus felt a surge of protectiveness toward this brave, broken girl. I bet you are. Would you like to show me some of your drawings sometime? As if summoned by his words, they heard the sound of a vehicle approaching. An older pickup truck rounded the bend, driven by an elderly Apache woman whose face was creased with worry. She spotted them under the tree and immediately pulled over. Lucia, the woman called out as she hurried toward them. I've been looking everywhere for you. I'm sorry, Grandma Rosa, Lucia said, her voice small. I just ... I needed to get away. Rosa took in the scene quickly, the blood on Lucia's arm. Marcus's gentle presence, the way her granddaughter seemed calmer than she had in months. She looked at Marcus with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. Thank you, she said simply. I'm Lucia Begay. This is my granddaughter, Marcus Whitehorse, he replied, extending his hand. I own the ranch next door. I found Lucia here, and we've been talking. Rosa studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. Would you like to come to dinner tomorrow night? I think we have a lot to discuss. Marcus felt a flutter of hope in his chest and emotion he hadn't experienced in years. I'd like that very much. If you're touched by this story of unexpected connection and healing, please like this video and subscribe for more inspiring tales of hope and resilience. Building trust. The next evening, Marcus found himself standing on Lucia Begay's front porch, holding a bouquet of wildflowers and a container of his mother's famous peach cobbler. The small adobe house was painted a warm terracotta color, with turquoise trim that seemed to glow in the golden light of the setting sun. Rosa opened the door with a warm smile that reminded him of his own grandmother. She was a small woman, probably in her 70s, with silver hair braided down her back and kind eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Marcus, welcome to our home, she said, stepping aside to let him enter. The interior was modest but filled with warmth. Traditional Apache artwork adorned the walls, intricate beadwork, pottery, and several stunning landscape paintings that Marcus suspected were Lucia's work. The smell of roasting meat and fresh bread filled the air. Lucia was sitting at the kitchen table, her injured arm now properly bandaged. She looked up when he entered, offering a shy smile that was like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. "Hi, Marcus," she said quietly. "How are you?" "I'm doing well," he replied, taking a seat across from her. "How are you feeling today?" Lucia nodded, her dark eyes bright with something that might have been hope. "I didn't hurt myself today. I tried that technique you taught me when I started feeling bad, and it actually helped." Marcus felt a surge of pride and relief. "That's wonderful, Lucia. That's really wonderful." Rosa served them a traditional meal of mutton stew, fried bread, and roasted corn. As they ate, she began to share more of Lucia's story. "Lucia's parents were Maria and Joseph Begay," Rosa explained. "Maria was my youngest daughter, and Joseph was like a son to me. They were driving back from Albuquerque when a drunk driver ran a red light and hit them head. They died instantly." Marcus felt his chest tighten with sympathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss." Since then, Lucia has been living with me. But she's been struggling with what the doctors call survivor's guilt and depression. She's been having episodes where she becomes overwhelmed and resorts to self-harm. Marcus glanced at Lucia, who was pushing food around her plate. "Have you tried counseling?" "We've been to 3 different therapists," Rosa said with a sigh. "But Lucia won't open up to them. She says they don't understand." "What about you, Lucia?" Marcus asked directly. "What do you think would help you?" Lucia looked up, surprised to be asked for her opinion. "Yesterday, when you talked to me about your son and showed me those breathing exercises, it was the first time since the accident that I felt like maybe someone understood." "You're not crazy," Marcus said firmly. "You're grieving. And grief makes us do things that don't make sense to other people." Over the next few hours, Marcus learned about Lucia's life before the accident. She had been an honor student, passionate about art, and planning to apply to art schools after high school. She had been close to both her parents, especially her mother. "Mom always said I had a gift," Lucia said softly. "She said I saw the world differently than other people, and that was something special." "She was right," Marcus said. "And I bet she still believes that." Rosa invited Marcus to see some of Lucia's artwork. They moved to a small room converted into an art studio, with easels, canvases, and supplies organized neatly. Marcus was genuinely stunned by what he saw. Lucia's paintings were extraordinary landscapes that seemed to pulse with life. Portraits that captured essence, and abstract pieces that conveyed emotion in ways words couldn't touch. But the recent paintings were dark, filled with pain and anguish. "These are incredible," Marcus said, stopping in front of a storm-tossed landscape. "You have real talent, Lucia." "They're all sad now," Lucia said quietly. "I can't seem to paint anything happy anymore." Marcus studied the painting more closely. Despite its dark subject matter, there was something beautiful about it. The way light broke through storm clouds, the resilience of trees bending but not breaking. "I don't think they're just sad," he said thoughtfully. "They show pain, but they also show strength. Look at this tree, it's bent by the storm, but it's still standing. That's not just sadness, Lucia, that's survival." Lucia looked at the painting with new eyes. "I never thought of it that way." As he prepared to leave, Rosa walked him to the door, while Lucia cleaned up. "She's been different since yesterday," Rosa said quietly. "More present, more engaged. I haven't seen her like this since before the accident." Marcus nodded, feeling responsibility settling on his shoulders. "I'd like to continue visiting, if that's okay. I think we might be able to help each other." Rosa studied his face. "You're grieving too, aren't you? I can see it in your eyes." "Yes," Marcus admitted. "I lost my son 2 years ago, and I've been struggling, but talking to Lucia, seeing her pain, it reminded me that there are reasons to keep fighting. Healing isn't something we do alone," Rosa said wisely. "Sometimes we need to help others heal before we can heal ourselves." Over the next few weeks, Marcus established a routine. He would finish his ranch work by early evening, then drive to Rosa's house to spend time with Lucia. Sometimes they would sit on the porch and talk about their losses. Other times, they would work on art projects together. Slowly, Marcus began to see changes in Lucia. She was eating more, sleeping better, and most importantly, she hadn't hurt herself since that first day. She was still struggling, but she was learning to channel those feelings into her art instead of self-destruction. "I've been thinking about what you said," Lucia told him one evening as they worked on a painting together. "About how my parents wouldn't want me to hurt myself. I keep hearing my mom's voice, telling me to be strong and use my gifts to help others." Marcus nodded encouragingly. "What do you think she would want you to do?" "I think she would want me to keep painting," Lucia said slowly. "But not just the dark stuff. She would want me to paint hope too. Beauty. The things that make life worth living." Like what? Marcus asked. Lucia thought for a moment, then smiled a real smile that reached her eyes. Like this. Like having someone who understands. Like knowing that even when everything feels hopeless, there are still people who care. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. I think your mom would be very proud of you for realizing that. As the weeks passed, Marcus found himself looking forward to his visits with an eagerness that surprised him. Lucia had become the bright spot in his days. The reason he got up each morning. In helping her heal, he was slowly healing himself. Facing the past 3 months after their first meeting, Marcus and Lucia had established a deep friendship built on mutual understanding and shared grief. On this particular October evening, the air was crisp with a promise of winter, and the cottonwood trees had turned golden dot. Marcus arrived to find Lucia sitting on the porch steps, staring off into the distance with a troubled expression. Hey, he said softly, taking a seat beside her. Rough day. Lucia nodded, not meeting his eyes. Tomorrow is the anniversary. 3 months since they died. Marcus felt his stomach clench. He remembered his own first anniversary, the overwhelming weight of grief. How are you feeling about it? Scared, Lucia admitted. What if I can't handle it? What if I go back to hurting myself? You won't, Marcus said, with more confidence than he felt. You're stronger now. You have tools to help you cope. And you have people who care about you. Lucia finally looked at him, her dark eyes bright with unshed tears. Will you come to the cemetery with me tomorrow? I want to visit their graves, but I don't think I can do it alone. Marcus's heart clenched. He hadn't been to Michael's grave since the funeral. The thought of it filled him with terror. But looking at Lucia's hopeful, frightened face, he knew he couldn't refuse. Of course, he said quietly. I'll be there. The next morning dawned clear and cool. Marcus picked up Lucia and Rosa at 9 o'clock, and they drove in contemplative silence to the small cemetery on the outskirts of Ruidoso. The cemetery was peaceful, nestled among pine trees with a view of distant mountains. Maria and Joseph Begay were buried side by side under a simple headstone that read, "Beloved parents and devoted servants of their people." Lucia stood frozen at the edge of the graves, her whole body trembling. Marcus could see the panic building in her eyes. I can't, she whispered. I can't do this. Yes, you can, Marcus said gently, taking her hand. You don't have to do it alone. I'm right here with you. Together, they approached the graves. Lucia knelt in the grass and placed a bouquet of wildflowers on each headstone. Yellow sunflowers for her mother, purple asters for her father. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad, Lucia whispered, her voice breaking. I miss you so much. I'm sorry it took me so long to come visit you. Marcus knelt beside her, his own eyes burning with tears. They know you've been struggling, Lucia. They understand. I've been so angry, Lucia continued, the words pouring out. Angry at you for leaving me. Angry at the drunk driver. Angry at God. Angry at myself for not being with you. She broke down completely then, sobbing with raw, primal grief. Marcus wrapped his arms around her, holding her as she cried. I know you didn't choose to leave me, Lucia said through her tears. I know you loved me. I know you would have stayed if you could. Marcus found himself thinking about Michael. They know you love them, he said, his voice thick with emotion. And they want you to be happy, Lucia. They want you to live. After a while, Lucia's sobs quieted. I want to tell them about you, she said. About how you've been helping me. Mom, Dad, I want you to meet Marcus, Lucia said, her voice stronger. He's been like a guardian angel to me. He found me when I was in my darkest place, and he's been helping me learn how to live with missing you. He lost his son too, so he understands. Marcus felt tears running down his cheeks. Thank you for raising such an amazing daughter, he said to the headstones. She's been helping me heal too. They spent another hour at the cemetery, with Lucia sharing memories and Marcus talking about his own journey through grief. When they finally left, Lucia seemed lighter. How do you feel? Marcus asked as they drove back. Different, Lucia said thoughtfully. Still sad, but cleaner somehow. Like I've been carrying around all this guilt and anger, and finally admitting it out loud made it smaller. That evening, they sat on Rosa's porch as the sun set. Lucia was working on a new painting, a landscape that was still melancholy, but had touches of light and hope. I've been thinking about what I want to do with my life, Lucia said, as she mixed colors. Before the accident, I was planning to apply to art school. I want to do that again. Marcus felt a surge of pride. That's wonderful. What kind of art do you want to study? Art therapy, Lucia said without hesitation. I want to help other kids who are going through what I've been through. I want to show them that art can be a way to heal. I think that's a beautiful goal, Marcus said, and I think you'd be incredible at it. As the days passed, Marcus watched Lucia transform. She was still grieving that would never completely go away, but she was learning to carry her grief in a way that didn't destroy her. She was making plans for the future. I want to thank you, Rosa said to Marcus one evening. You've given me my granddaughter back. She's laughing again, dreaming again. Marcus shook his head. She saved herself, Rosa. I just gave her some tools. We all need tools, Rosa said wisely, and sometimes we need other people to show us where to find them. As Marcus drove home that night, he realized that something had shifted in his own heart as well. The crushing weight of grief was still there, but it no longer felt like it was going to destroy him. In helping Lucia heal, he had found his own path back to the light. New beginnings 6 months after that first meeting under the cottonwood tree. Marcus stood in Rosa's living room, surrounded by easels displaying Lucia's artwork. The local community center was hosting an art show featuring young Native American artists, and Lucia had been invited to exhibit her work. I can't believe this is actually happening, Lucia said, adjusting one of her paintings for the third time. She was wearing a traditional Apache dress that Rosa had made, deep purple with intricate beadwork. Believe it, Marcus said, grinning with pride. You've earned this, Lucia. The centerpiece of the exhibition was a large canvas titled Storm's End. It depicted the same cottonwood tree where Marcus had first found her, but instead of darkness, this version showed the tree bathed in golden sunlight, its branches reaching toward a sky filled with hope. That's where it all started, Lucia said, following his gaze. That tree saved my life. You saved my life. Marcus shook his head. You saved your own life. I just happened to be there when you needed someone to believe in you. The art show was a tremendous success. Community members, fellow artists, and gallery owners from Santa Fe came to see Lucia's work. Marcus watched with pride as she confidently discussed her artistic process. This piece was created during one of my darkest periods, Lucia explained to a group. I was struggling with survivor's guilt after losing my parents, but painting it helped me externalize those feelings, get them out of my head, where I could examine them more objectively. Several paintings sold that evening, and Lucia received multiple commissions. But more importantly, she connected with other young people who had experienced trauma, sharing her story and offering hope. I want to start a support group, Lucia told Marcus as they packed up. For teenagers who have lost parents or siblings, we could meet once a week and use art as a way to process our grief together. Marcus felt his heart swell with pride. I think that's an incredible idea. As they drove home through the desert night, Marcus reflected on how much had changed. Lucia had not only survived her darkest period, but had emerged stronger and more determined. She had been accepted to the University of New Mexico, with a full scholarship to study art therapy. Marcus, Lucia said suddenly, I need to tell you something. What's that? When you found me under that tree, I was planning to kill myself. I had it all figured out. Marcus felt his breath catch. They had never explicitly discussed suicide. But then you showed up, Lucia continued, and you didn't try to fix me, or tell me everything was going to be okay. You just sat with me in my pain and showed me that I wasn't alone. That made all the difference. Lucia, I also know that helping me has helped you heal too. You're not just surviving anymore, you're living. Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. I want to ask you something, Lucia said. I know you haven't been to visit Michael's grave since the funeral. Would you like me to go with you? Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes. I'd like that very much. The next weekend, they drove to the cemetery where Michael was buried. It was a beautiful spot, overlooking a valley filled with wildflowers. Marcus knelt beside the headstone, his hands shaking as he traced his son's name. Hi, Michael, he whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long. I've been lost. But I want you to meet someone who's been helping me find my way back. He told his son about Lucia, about how they had found each other and helped each other heal. He talked about the art show, about Lucia's plans for the future. She reminds me of you, Marcus said through his tears. She has your strength, your compassion, your determination to make the world better. Lucia knelt beside him and placed a small painted stone on Michael's grave, a miniature landscape showing a motorcycle riding through wildflowers under a brilliant blue sky. I painted this for him, she said softly. I wanted him to know that his dad is going to be okay. Marcus picked up the stone, marveling at the detail. It's beautiful. Thank you. You know what the hardest part has been, Marcus said. The guilt, feeling like I failed as a father. But you didn't fail, Lucia said firmly. You loved him. Sometimes terrible things happen, and it's not anyone's fault. Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher, Lucia said with a smile. As they prepared to leave, Marcus felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced since Michael's death. The grief would always be there, but it no longer felt crushing. There's something I want to tell you, Marcus said. I've been thinking about selling part of the ranch. Lucia looked at him with surprise. Why? I want to do something meaningful. Something that would make Michael proud. Like what? Marcus smiled. I want to start a non-profit organization. A place where kids who have experienced trauma can come to heal through art, through connecting with animals, through building relationships with caring adults. Lucia's eyes lit up. That's amazing. You could use part of the ranch land, build studios and therapy spaces. Maybe have horses for equine therapy. Would you want to be involved? After you finish school, you could run the art therapy program. Lucia threw her arms around him. Are you kidding? I would love that. We could call it the Michael and Maria Foundation, Marcus said. Named after our kids, the ones we lost and the one I found. Lucia stepped back, tears streaming down her face. You think of me as your daughter. I think of you as family, Marcus said simply. You saved my life just as much as I saved yours. 2 years later, the Michael and Maria Foundation opened its doors on the anniversary of Marcus and Lucia's first meeting. The main building was constructed around the original cottonwood tree, incorporating it as a symbol of hope and renewal. Lucia, now a sophomore at UNM studying art therapy, gave the keynote speech at the opening ceremony. 2 years ago, I was sitting under this tree, so consumed by pain that I was hurting myself, she said, gesturing to the cottonwood in the courtyard. I thought my life was over. But a stranger stopped and saw me and refused to let me disappear into my pain. She looked at Marcus. Marcus showed me that healing is possible, but more importantly, that we don't have to heal alone. That's what this foundation is about, creating a community where no one has to face their darkest moments by themselves. The foundation quickly gained recognition as an innovative model for trauma-informed care. They served dozens of families in their first year, offering art therapy, equine therapy, family counseling, and peer support groups. Marcus found that running the foundation gave him a sense of purpose he had never experienced. Every success story felt like a tribute to Michael's memory. I think about him every day, Marcus told Lucia one evening as they sat on the foundation's porch, watching the sunset. But now when I think about him, I don't just feel sad. I feel grateful that I got to be his father. Grateful for the time we had. Grateful that his memory is inspiring so much good. Lucia nodded. I feel the same way about my parents. They're still with me, just in a different way. Every person we helped, that's their legacy continuing. As the stars appeared in the darkening sky, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 3 years ago, he had been a broken man, barely surviving. Now he was surrounded by family, not traditional, but forged by shared experience and mutual healing. You know what I've learned, Marcus said. What's that? Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can also lead you to your greatest purpose. If I hadn't lost Michael, I never would have understood Lucia's pain. And if she hadn't lost her parents, she never would have developed the empathy to help other kids. Lucia smiled, squeezing his hand. It doesn't make the loss okay, but it does make it meaningful. Exactly, Marcus said. And maybe that's enough. Maybe finding meaning in our pain is the closest thing to healing we can hope for. As they sat in the gathering darkness, surrounded by the sounds of the desert night and the knowledge that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to help families find their way through darkness into light, both felt a deep sense of peace. They had taken their broken pieces and built something beautiful. Something lasting. The cottonwood tree rustled in the evening breeze, its leaves whispering secrets of resilience and renewal, just as it had on that first day when two broken souls found each other and discovered that sometimes the most profound healing happens when we stop focusing on our own pain long enough to ease someone else. Single quotes. As thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of healing and hope. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more inspiring tales that remind us that even in our darkest moments, we are never truly alone. Sometimes the person who saves us is the one we end up saving in return. Share this video with someone who might need to be reminded that healing is possible, that community matters, and that our greatest pain can become our greatest purpose.